All right, Mickey, this is our last.
I
Our
know.
last type to talk through.
Our sweet type nines who have waited
Our
patiently
sweet type.
to.
Yes, our sweet type nines.
But
Oh,
I guess if you're gonna, if you're gonna make somebody wait till the last nine, it's the one.
it's the nines.
Bless their hearts.
Oh,
One time I was doing a workshop and going through the types, and I forgot. I skipped over fours, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
of
Like
all
the
the people
worst.
to skip
Right?
over,
I
they're
should
really
not
gonna
have skipped.
they're gonna feel that.
You're gonna be like, "See." Oh, but
Oh,
nines are like usually like, "Fine, thanks
yeah,
for eventually getting to me."
totally. Yeah.
So this type is often referred to as the mediator, the
Hmm.
moderator, or even the peacemaker.
Yeah.
And they really can see all sides. I've seen type nines like argue with themselves, not argue, but like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and oh, but then I thought this. Like they
Yeah.
can literally have all sides in their
They
own
really
brain.
can. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And they really are motivated to keep the peace
Yeah.
through harmony and avoiding conflict.
Yeah.
So they believe they can gain belonging and comfort by substituting their own worth for a blending or
Mm-hmm.
merging with others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's their own self that doesn't feel worthy enough to kind of stand out. And
Mm.
so they really can do this dispersion of their energy
Mm-hmm.
into like the people and things around them, which creates kind of an inertia. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
they're just kind of like floating, maintaining,
Yeah.
and keeping things at the same pace. So again, 8, 9, and 1 are the body types, and they all to an extent can do this self-forgetting, but for nines, that's really where they park it, in this self-forgettingness of not really being in touch with their own priorities,
Yeah.
or even their own limits, right? So which is why they can disperse out to other people, because they don't really have a sense of their own boundaries if they're unexamined.
Yeah.
Because and so they want things to be smooth and harmonious,
Mm-hmm.
um, not just for themselves, but for
For
others,
everyone. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's interesting. I have a few friends who are Enneagram 9, and they really have this like superpower of assimilating different viewpoints and finding the common ground.
Yeah.
Where for me, I can tend to get stuck on differences and challenging, and they really have
Mm-hmm.
a way of, it's a really lovely way of just like pulling together different viewpoints and seeing all sides of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, what has happened is that their essence, they've lost touch with that essence, that they matter as well, right? That
Mm-hmm.
what they think or feel is just as important as what everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that they've come to believe that personality that has kind of, structure that's built up around them is that they need to um, kind of put everybody else's feelings before them. They need to blend in,
Yeah.
not cause any trouble, right? Because that is what will keep them loved,
Yeah.
if they can just, blend in. And kind of the stereotypical way, or like the funny thing people will talk about nines, is like asking nines where they want to go to dinner is like a lost cause.
Got
Like,
it.
ask them the day before,
Mm-hmm.
because they need time to think about it. Now, most of the time they'll just go along with what you want, but nines can have this passive aggressive behavior,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not that they don't have desires or needs or want to go a particular place.
Yeah.
It's just that it takes them a little longer to get to it. It can be buried under kind of what the group wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or what the other person wants, or wanting to want what the other person wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when they get in touch with it, then there's a resentment.
Mm-hmm.
There's a like, well, that's not what I really want. So they'll go to dinner, they'll go to the
Mm-hmm.
place you selected, but then they're just kind of like, I don't like anything on this menu. I'm just going to eat the breadsticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, do you want to go somewhere else? you know?
Yeah.
And so that kind of like passive aggressiveness or what,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to kind of what they don't want to do, maybe in a household or something,
Mm-hmm.
what I absolutely hate is when people label nines lazy, because it's not about being
Right.
lazy. It's just like, I have an inertia. It's like, I don't,
Yeah.
let's not rock anything. Let's
Yeah.
not, and it's this self-forgetting. It's this like, yeah, it's not that they don't have any movement, and they can be quite energetic. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's this passive aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't even know another way to explain it. It's not coming to me right now, but like, they need to know what they think matters, and that their
Yes.
involvement matters, and the way they would do it
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
But it's almost like this ultimate feedback loop of like, they don't participate, so then people move on without them. So then, of course, I didn't even matter to begin with. So
Mm-hmm.
see, I'm just going to not participate because y'all don't care anyway. You didn't ask me. And it becomes this
Yeah.
feedback loop that
Yeah.
allows them to just kind of stay powered down
Yes.
and never actually put themselves fully into the
Yeah.
situation or into the relationship. So,
Yeah.
they have to kind of lean into their participation and themselves mattering
Yeah.
in the relationship and in the situation.
So loving our nines well, letting them know their needs are important, helping them get in touch with that. What else?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is their relationship with anger.
Mm.
So we didn't, I still have a lot of kind of work to do around understanding how all the types relate to anger. I
Mm-hmm.
have a good sense of like with the body types, how they relate to anger. One, because
Yeah.
I'm a body type
Mm-hmm.
and I suppress anger as a one. Eights, can sometimes be energized by it because they're like,
Mm-hmm.
give it to me. It
Yeah.
feels very alive. And nines can essentially be asleep to their anger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I've said for some of these types, like there's this telltale thing. And often with nines, it's like, tell me about the last time you were angry. And they're like, oh, in 1992.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
because it's like they work really hard to not be aware of their anger.
Right.
And so,
Right.
and then for it to come out and
Mm-hmm.
other people to be able to recognize it as anger, it's like you are once or twice a year,
Yeah.
and so, but it's there.
Mm-hmm. Of course, because we all
They're
experience emotions. Of
right.
course. Yeah.
And
No one is
so
immune
like,
to anger.
right. And so like, but it feels really big. It
Yeah.
feels like if we're talking about this not rocking the boat,
Right.
anger is a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And we're going to do everything we can to keep that tidal wave
Yeah.
from coming.
Yeah.
So
So
like,
we've got to kind of help them feel safe in expressing anger.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you can have moments of disharmony in
Mm-hmm.
an otherwise harmonious life or
Yes.
relationship or
And it
household.
will be okay.
It will be okay.
Yeah.
Your anger isn't too big. Your
Mm-hmm.
disruption of the harmony in the
Yeah.
home isn't too big.
Yeah.
That, your full range of emotions isn't too big. It matters.
Yeah.
And the truth of it though is, for some people, their anger might be too big. There might be
Mm.
things, trauma things, right?
Yeah.
That,
Right.
ways
Too
that they,
overwhelming. Yeah.
that's right, where they have, their window of tolerance is shrunk,
Mm-hmm.
and something like anger does throw them into,
Mm-hmm.
outside of that window of,
Yeah.
tolerance. And so, also, if that's a thing, understanding that the anger isn't your core self. That's not like anger being big isn't
Yeah.
somehow that you are fundamentally broken, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
That's
So
so good.
we can
Yeah.
learn to handle your anger. You can learn to
Yes.
handle your anger.
Yeah.
And really like uh welcoming that, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just real scary.
Totally.
And
Totally.
they're not the only types to deal with that, but it's just
Yeah.
it's like, how do we help them, or how can a nine just decide to do that work around their
Mm-hmm.
anger So it doesn't have to be something that is only contained in a lid with a box with a padlock that I only let out when, once a year when the disharmony is so strong that I feel like I absolutely have to say something. There can be smaller waves of disharmony and we can eventually get back to harmony, and that'll be okay.
Now, what about self-care in the Enneagram 9? Because I'm going to admit an assumption that I'm not sure is true, but my assumption is that they're the ones that have self-care nailed.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because they like comfort. And so, you know, my Enneagram friends are the ones that are like, I'll binge Netflix all day. I'll read a book. I'll sit in the sun. And I'm like, here on my to-do list, like, what's that life? You know, so.
I know. Yeah, I mean, you know, we do assume, because some of those characteristics of nines are that they're so caring and attentive and empathetic, right? So kind of receptive. And that is usually the way they're usually doing that is comforting other people, right? They will snuggle in and watch a movie marathon with you. But it can be kind of like a narking out, right? It can be kind of you know,
avoidance,
right? Like too much Netflix under a blanket on your couch is you having, you know, being buried in Chinese food cartons and you know, no one's talked to you in 3 days. Like, you know, it's not, you know, too much of a good thing.
It can shift over to kind of a self-loathing place as opposed to self-care.
Yes. And so like self-care for 9 is like, really, are you doing whatever you're doing, you know, because it's what you want to do, or because it's getting you like out of these feelings of discomfort. Right. Are you saying yes when you really mean no because you want to avoid any kind of conflict, right? So self-care for a 9 is starts with really getting in touch with what's true for them, with their true yes and their true no. And like, when is self-soothing, or like, is that coming from a place of true alignment with who I am? Or is it coming from some sense of like, if I can just blend in and disappear, zone out from all this stuff? Because 9s can like daydream and zone out, I mean, for hours a day. And so, you know, they're not like the types that need to learn how to just like put on a song and dance for 3 minutes and have a, you know, allow a little pleasure. They're pretty well stocked on the pleasure. They have to learn like to examine why they're doing that. And have honest conversations with themselves about what it means for them.
And balance, I guess, too, huh?
Sure.
Finding balance of like, okay, I'm going to engage in this, you know, pleasurable activity for a certain amount of time, and then I'm gonna click back in to what I need to do.
Like, also paying bills is self-care. Also walking the dog is self-care. Like, if you don't walk the dog, if you don't, like, there are some things we have to do that are really caring for our lives, like creating a scaffolding for our lives. And so, you know, are we plugged into those things as well? Are we, you know, also showing up for our lives instead of like hiding behind other people?
Yeah, and it strikes me too, even in talking about this, is, you know, I think the Enneagram 9s they seem to be good at being in the moment, but then that self-care of like future self, right? So what will future self want to come home to, wake up to? Thinking that through, not just like what feels good right in this very moment.
Right, because I don't have to, then I won't have to dig my heels in and protest. You know, I won't have to kind of try and sink the boat later because now I'm mad because I finally realized what was going on with me. And so my yes gets to be a full yes. You know, and that can really save problems in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Micky, this was a fun series to do with you.
Yeah, super fun.
Thank you
I
so
really, I
much.
really appreciate, the questions about how we love each other well, how we take
Yeah.
care of ourselves as each type,
Yeah.
because it's not, yeah, there are great things. Like you can start to kind of crack the nut psychologically if
Mm-hmm.
you just know what your type is. But then when you really work with all the
Yes.
pieces of
Yeah.
this, it's
Yeah.
like there can really be a lot of freedom and a lot
A
of
lot.
alignment with your true self that
It can be.
changes
Yeah.
everything.
It can be really transformative.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.